I don't think anybody has a good gauge on Oklahoma going into 2024. And maybe that's a good thing, or also a really scary thing if you're an SEC opponent, because this is a coin flip team. On one side of the coin, if it lands in their favor, they're going 10-2, maybe even making it to Atlanta, and certainly a college football playoff dark horse. And on the flip side, well, they're probably 6-6, just getting to be bowl eligible and building for next year. They got games against Auburn, Tennessee, Alabama, which are definitely going to be treacherous. But at the same time, maybe they end up impressing. And even if they don't go to the playoff this year, it doesn't mean they don't have star power talent throughout the likes of Norman that could eventually become all SEC figures. And today, that's what we're going to talk about. Which suitors could easily find their way onto a preseason all-SEC roster and certainly could be in the running by the season's end. But what's going on, SEC Unfiltered? It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification. That way you don't miss a single episode of SECU, because we're talking college football every single day leading up to week 1. And of course, hit subscribe, because we want to continue to be the #1 platform, all things SEC coverage. Follow me on my own YouTube channel at Mr. Cole Thompson. Follow us on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. Make sure you download the podcast version of the show. If you like the show, go ahead and give it a 5-star. If you don't, leave us a 1-star and tell us why you hate us, because we want to get better. And for #1 coverage presenting everything around the SEC, make sure that you visit SECUnfiltered.com. SEC Unfiltered brought to you by RHOBACK.com. Use the promo code SECU for 20% off your first purchase on polos, hoodies, joggers, shorts, and so much more. Promo code SECU on RHOBACK.com, 20% off. Tell them the good folks over at SEC Unfiltered sent you. Oklahoma's a really weird team, and I'm okay with saying that. But I'm also a lot higher than most people, at least on this channel. Like, you know what Chris and Dave have said. I am actually pro-Sooners, so you should go ahead and be pro-Cole when I talk about you, because I think that you're in a really good spot. And the way that you just attack the second part of the transfer portal, adding in a guy like Dominic Williams, plus bringing in yet another offensive lineman, a really good one in Branson Hickman, I think that you're showing that you really understand what the legacy is of the SEC. Now, not every player is going to be qualified. Jackson Arnold, I get it. There's a lot of people that believe he is the second coming. He's going to be the best thing since sliced bread. But when you play in a conference that already features Jackson Dart, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers is coming on in, and the overhyped but also somewhat qualified Nico Iamaleava, you're probably not going to get that love. But you know who should get that love? Absolutely. You can't start any conversation without Gavin Saige. Because 6.2 yards per play last year, 9 touchdowns on 120 carries, 744 yards. This is a guy that was willing to bulldoze over opponents in the Big 12, not be afraid to lower the shoulder to get extra contact, and then showed a little bit of elusiveness in the open field. And here's the crazy part. He was doing this last season while splitting reps with Tyway Walker. Well, Walker's now with Wisconsin up in Madison, and now the running back room is pretty much his to control. And this could be a team that relies heavily on their ground game very early on as Jackson Arnold gets accustomed to playing in Seth Littrell's offense, builds that relationship opposite receivers than just Dion Burks, and finds that consistent radar. So don't be shocked at the start of the year if you're seeing a guy like Saige get 20, 25 carries per game, really be that enforcer on the ground that tokes the rock and also does a little bit of elusiveness in the open field. If I can get a running back that allows me to have a bulldozer, but also makes defensive linemen or defensive backs, linebackers, whoever it is, look like Michael Jackson doing the pose with the lean forward half of the time, I feel like I'm in a good spot. And the running back market in the SEC, it's respected. You got guys like Trevor Etienne, you have Montrell Johnson. I think you have to throw in Bo Justice Haynes and Champ Miller. But there's not really a lead back. So don't tell me for a second that Gavin Saige just can't walk on in and be one of the best tailbacks in the country, let alone the #1 tailback in the SEC. And the same thing kind of goes for when we talk about Dion Burks. I didn't know what to make of Burks going into the spring. You know, you look at what he did last season with Hudson Card and West Lafayette, you figured, well, it's the Big Ten. Hit and miss teams when it comes to defense. When they play the really good teams, he was probably less than ideal in a situation. But when they played the bad teams, he was flying. And you know what he did in the spring game? He flew all over Oklahoma secondary. And here's the difference between what I'm said earlier and now. Oklahoma's secondary is pretty good. Oklahoma has a secondary that actually can hold its own against most people. This was a guy that last year averaged 13.6 yards per play. I expect him to average more, somewhere around 16, maybe 17 yards, 6 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's going to be able to probably hit those double digits next season. Also, 47 catches. I would not be shocked to see him have the ability to get to 70 catches. So basically, you're doubling his production. His numbers rely heavily on what you get with Jackson Arnold, but Arnold also is going to have 3 other wide receivers to work with. Andre Anthony is going to be one that you have to consider. You also have to throw Nick Anderson into the mix. Both vertical guys that can easily take the tops off of defenses. But when you look at what this team is, there's already a budding relationship between number 10 and number 6. And you're not going to get 16 points on a touchdown, but 6 for 6 makes a lot of sense. And I think I'm going to be saying that a lot during the regular season. There's not that many wide receivers as fast, as fluid, and have that great of a catch radius as Dion Burks, where he comes on in and immediately lets it be known, I'm not only one of the best wide receivers in the country, I'm definitely one of the best wide receivers in the SEC. Speaking of which, we got to talk about the transfer that just came in, Branson Hickman. He was a 3-year starter at SMU. Really, really, really talented player. 6'3", 294. He was the number 12 interior offensive lineman on the transfer portal, according to 24/7 Sports. Last season, he was a major factor in not just the rushing attack, but also protecting Preston Stone in routes winning an AAC title. And now he gets to go play in the SEC. And much like I said about the running back room, you talk about the centers. There's some good names. There are some very solid players that are going to compete for interior offensive linemen, including newcomer Parker Brailsford that joined Kalen DeBoer from Washington. But it's a wide open race. Why can't the guy that was just a part of a championship program in Dallas just go a little bit north up I-45, head to Norman, and then say, I'm going to bring that same mentality to the SEC? He's a good overall sturdy blocker. He did great last year when you read the numbers and run blocking. He's got good footwork and pass pro. And I think that that's going to do wonders for Jackson Arnold's numbers. I think that's going to do wonders for the run game with Gavin Saige. In fact, if you're talking about maybe having a guy like Gavin Saige or even a Dion Burks on an all-SEC list, it probably starts with what you have in the trenches. And I do think that when you get a guy like Branson Hickman with starting experience, that does wonders. Rest of the offensive line, it's a question mark. Here's the thing. We know who the offensive line coach is. We know how this team plays. We know that they're going to be undervalued and pretty much underwhelming to begin the year. Doesn't mean by season's end, one of these guys can't come in. This is just to start the season. Don't lean in too much to this and then come back like in 7 months and go, hey, yeah, you were wrong about this. But no, these are all preseason expectations. Speaking of preseason expectations, you can't go any further without talking about Danny Stutzman. My apologies. 104 tackles last year, 3 sacks, 3 pass deflections, 1 touchdown on an interception return for 30 yards, 2 forced fumbles, fumble recovery. You know what Danny Stutzman is? You ever see the movie Wild Wild West? It's a really fun one from my childhood. I don't know why it's so underappreciated, but you hear Ulysses S. Grant, played by Kevin Kline, who's played like 2 parts in that movie, not the point, say that Jim West is a guy that likes to shoot first, shoot second, shoot some more, and then when everybody's dead, maybe ask a question or 2. Well, Danny Stutzman likes to tackle first, intercept somebody second, decapitate a wide receiver across the middle of the field third, and then when everybody is feeling the pain, well, maybe I'll let you go ahead and get a first down. That's the type of player Stutzman is. And again, you look at the linebacking room. One of my favorite linebackers in the SEC last year was Elijah Herring. Well, he's no longer there. He pulled back to Johnson and said, I'm not going to be here to Knoxville, Tennessee. Staying in the state, he went to Memphis, but still, this is an opportunity for one of your players to come on in immediately and be that enforcer. He's the field general. He is well respected by a great defensive-minded coach in Brett Venables. It's so hard to look at this team and not see where this process can go and where this team can be relied. They're going to be great defensively. I don't have any doubt about that. I think it really starts with the linebacking core. And when you have a guy like Stutzman who can come in and strut his stuff, yeah, I'm very excited to see him probably not only gain preseason All-SEC honors, but certainly maybe even All-American honors in the process. Billy Bowman, another guy, Yeah, it will be a joke. Like every few years, we talk about the one player that's left off the all preseason list. Billy Bowman, because if he's a newcomer to the conference being left off, would be a travesty. And also, it would be absolutely nonsensical. 6 interceptions last year, 3 returned for touchdowns, good in coverage, great in open field tackling. The guy has something that we all covet, and it's the ability to change the momentum of a game. And if you have that guy on your team, I'm sorry, I don't know what doesn't qualify for an all SEC player. Momentum shifter moves are exactly what you want. Saying that like 3 times fast. MSN, MSM. See, momentum shifting moves. That's a player like Billy Bowman. And now that he's back, he gets to be the enforcer in coverage. And you know there's going to be talented wide receivers that are trying to run deep. Guess who's going to be waiting there like a center fielder, hoping that a pop fly comes in the 9th inning for you to win the World Series? That's Billy Bowman. He's going to do that time after time after time. And I would be remiss to say that if he is not the number 1 safety being brought in all conversations to start the preseason, throw the list out, just rip it up, just throw it in the back pocket. Don't ever look at it again. Just throw it down the wishing well and pray to God that people start having actual minds because they have no idea what they're talking about. Finally, Dominic Williams. We got to talk about the kid. Dominic Williams is what you do when you want to prove to the world we mean business. 6'2", 321 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. Really good player last year at TCU. And the big thing is that a guy like Brent Venables has seen what he's done the last 2 seasons. 1 year when they went to the national championship. Last year when they were in the Big 12. Number 10 defensive lineman in the transfer portal. 2 more years of eligibility. This is a guy that where you say, okay, now we mean business. And I'm not saying that, again, Oklahoma wasn't going out of their way and adding in players via the portal, but this is a guy that you hitch your wagon to and you're willing to bet your life that everything from here on out resides and starts with him. He's great in run support. He is an efficient pass rusher. He does a good job lowering the shoulder. Big guy, 320 pounds. And yet he wins most of his battles because he's able to get lower leverage on any opponent. That's something that you just have or you don't. And he has that. And so when you look at Dominic Williams coming into this defensive line, which was not a strong point, but it wasn't as weak as some of the national media people want to make it out to be. He absolutely is going to be an enforcer. And guess what? He's working with one of the best defensive coaches in all of college football, with Brent Venables as his main guy. So I look at this Oklahoma team, and I look at what Dominic Williams is going to provide up the middle. You have an enforcer at every level of the field. And so because of that, it's hard for me to say that they're not going to be one of the better teams in the SEC for 2024. Maybe they won't be elite. Maybe they won't be the number 1 roster. Maybe they'll have some growing pains, but they are a really good team. Oh, one more for you. Gentry Williams. Go remember this name if you're just watching this video and you're not an Oklahoma fan. Gentry Williams last year had 3 interceptions, 1 pass breakup. He's a sophomore from Tulsa, junior from Tulsa, 6 foot, 182 pounds. Did a really nice job playing in coverage, especially when it was in man support. And I think that when you look at some of these wide receivers that you're going to be going up against, especially young guys, like we don't know what we're going to see from Chris Brazzell at Tennessee in week 4. We don't know what we're going to see on the first road trip when you go down to Auburn with Keandre Lambert-Smith and Cam Coleman. You're going to have basically a rover, and the rover is going to be Williams. And if he goes and he takes away and blankets and puts one of them to sleep immediately, that basically destroys the passing attack that they're here on out. And so this is why I consider them a coin flip team, because if you look at that game against Auburn, if their defense is able to just basically mask all the concerns for the offense and then make this team very one-dimensional if you're Auburn, you feel really good about the direction you're going in. I think that when you look at Oklahoma, they have at least 6 potential all-SEC starters. They absolutely have 6 all-SEC caliber players for the preseason, and maybe even more by the season comes to an end. But let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think? Does Oklahoma have more or less? Did I name all the players that you think deserve early preseason all-SEC honors? Tell your friends, family, mortal enemies, best of bros, college football aficionados everywhere about this channel, because we want to keep you posted on everything going on in the SEC. Make sure that you're following us on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Make sure that you're also following us on all of our other platforms. Follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. my own YouTube channel at Mr. Cole Thompson. And for the #1 content surrounding your favorite sport, make sure that you visit SECUnfiltered.com. I am Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks. Until next time, Oklahoma fans, remember, I'm the fun one. Later.